Next up, we have Miriam Rosso. She is our presenter who's going to be talking about organizing volunteers through a variety of roles. We know how difficult that can be, and sometimes it's a daunting task to get volunteers to sign up for things. But Meredith has some pointers for us, and I'm excited that she's here to share with us today. So thank you, Miriam.
You're welcome, Seth. Thanks for having me here. All right. Yes, volunteers are a big issue. So hard to get sometimes. So I have a few ideas of what that looks like. I'm going to try and switch over to my screen to some slides. My name, Miriam Rosso, managing volunteers for online presence. We have, you can find me here on Twitter, Instagram. I am on Snapchat, although I really only do that with my daughter, but I'm trying it out. And you can always email me at that Gmail account. So my philosophy on finding volunteers is to build a network of support. And not a culture of control. And you have heard from Evan and from Meredith and from Peter that it takes a lot of different kind of content and new content all the time to be current and having people come to your website and wanting to see that. And so it takes a lot of different people, and that churches are moving from their communication directors from being the people that do it all to the people that are strategizing and figuring out how to do that. So in order for those communication directors to do that, they need to have a network of support and not a culture of control. And so here's what that looks like. Number one, you need to know your roles and your cast. Just like in theater, there are backstage people, there are lighting, there's sound, there's your scene shop workers who only worked on the set, there's your casting directors, there's the stage manager, there's the props managers, and all of these roles work together in order to bring about a production. So you have all these different kinds of people. When you're specifically talking about blogs, that's a lot of what I worked with. But you also do this with your social media. So you're going to have copy editors and content editors. You're going to have people looking at your theological content. You're going to have people recruiting a timeline, somebody that's looking at the timeline, your publicity, and your writers. And these roles can shift. In some plays, I was on stage. I was a lead. And in other plays, I was backstage and I did sound. And so those roles shift and change. And they do that depending on the person's life and where they're at in life and what they can handle right then. So that makes a big difference. And sometimes you're going to get people that just want that one-time appearance. They're going to want to only be in at one time and just share this one story that they had. Later on in my resources, one of the blogs as a resource that I have for you is a blog that was our top 10 blogs of the year. And in that, we cite that we had 121 different contributors to our blog that year to get all of our content out. So as we were looking for content, some of those people only wrote one thing. And a big part of that is I asked them specifically to write that. I was out listening. I was recruiting from everywhere. So I was listening to the stories that people were telling, and I was actively seeking that content. Often a blog, but you can be seeking it for videos. You can be seeking for your Facebook and Instagram, who you see doing that. And then you want to use that yes to build a relationship. You want to be able to continue to have conversation with them. You want to continue to support them. I was constantly in contact with my staff writers, those people who were my main leads. I was in contact with them regularly by email. And then I also sat down with them on a, maybe twice a year, face to face, and we just sat and shared, how's it going? What else can I do to support you in this role of writing? And is there something that needs to change? Do you need to back off a little bit? Can you bump up what you're doing for me a little bit? So there are lots of people involved, lots of different roles to fill, and different cast members. And in Romans 12, it talks about the church, us being one body in Christ, but having many members. So we have all these different gifts and abilities, and we want to use them. I want to find a way to support you in the gift that you've been given and not push you into something that you're uncomfortable with. But I may see a gift that you have and want to encourage you in that, and then help you find out how to be comfortable in that. So once you know your roles and your cast, you want to help your volunteers say yes. And so number one, I've heard all of our previous presenters talk about all the different kinds of content that you can have, and having it be new and producing a lot of content. Well, in order to do that, you want to be using the people that are already using that content. So Meredith said the youth are on Instagram, so let them go crazy with Instagram, sharing stuff. If they have and somebody else said, find somebody who's active in their Facebook page and then bring them in to help you make your Facebook page active. So you want to be looking for people that are using that content that you're trying to staff. And then I also was actively seeking referrals. So I was always asking somebody, do you know anybody that likes to write? Do you know anybody that really enjoys Instagram or pictures? Do you know somebody who's great on Pinterest and with crafts? Could they help us promote that stuff? And then as I was seeking those referrals, I would ask them questions about, I would give them, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to write a blog to respond to worship once a month. Just the first Sunday of the month, here's what I want you to do. And as I would continue to talk to them, if they said no, then I would modify my ask as I continued to find out what they were searching for and looking for and able to do. So what was happening in their life at that time. And so if they couldn't do once a month, maybe they could do the 5th Sunday of the month for me, because there's not as many of those. Or maybe as I'm talking to them, they're sharing a story from their life. They had a conversation with their coworker, and they were able to see how Jesus was working in their life there. And so I'll ask them, could you just write that story up for me? I would love to be able to share that with our community and the greater community. And then if they still were not able to do it, I used a no to get a referral also. Do you know anybody else that's willing to do that? Or maybe go talk to the other person in this situation and see if they are willing to do that. I actually had a pin given to me that said, keep calm and write a blog about it. And the joke was always that I would say, you should write a blog about that. Everybody knew if they were talking to me, I was probably going to ask them to write a blog about it or share it in some way, shape, or form so that we could get it out there. So I was constantly asking for new content from new people. All right, the biggest thing that we want to be careful of is to avoid bottlenecks. So you've got this great superhighway, and you heard Peter talk about how you have different ways that people are getting your content through social media, or if you're looking at your analytics, then are they coming in? Are they typing in your website directly? Most of ours were coming from Facebook, but I want everything to lead back to our website and then back out of our website. But in order to do that, you've also heard that you want to have content that is changing always. The websites that you go to are the websites that are new and have fresh content. I've also heard our speakers talk about how we want our content to be not just for our church community, people already connected to us, but people connected outside of the church. And in order to do that, you have to be producing more content than you are able to sift through on your own. And so you want to look, where does your superhighway turn into a one road country lane? Where are the stops that are causing you to not be able to get the content out there? So if you go back to your cast of members, you have all these different people that can be helping out. So I had people that were great at editing. So I had 2 editors, plus the communications director who was above my position, which was content web team leader. And then you had I had myself reading for theological content and just does it read smoothly. And then we also I was able to, if something seemed not quite right, I was able to flag it and send it on to the pastors and say, could you check this? How does this read? Does this fit with our theology? But my writers, especially those who were my on stage all the time writers, especially my regular writers, they were able to post their own blogs. I let go of control of it having to be sent to me directly, and then I post it and get the image and approve it and schedule it. I allowed them to do that. And then they knew that I was going to be reading it, that it was going to be read by at least 2 other people. And we could always stop a schedule. We could change when it was going to be scheduled to post, or we could let it post. If something ended up posting and then we read it and there was something wrong, we went right in and edited it, and we were able to fix that right away. In the time that I did this, when we were really putting out a bunch of blog posts, I never had to take down a blog once it posted. I may have gone in and edited something, I may have tweaked the formatting on it, but I never had to go down and completely take it down because it was so wrong or so against what we were saying. Excuse me. Our writers knew that they had people looking at their content, and they were thankful that they had people looking at it, but they were also very thankful that they were able to write in their own voice. They were able to share their story from their point of view, and without being worried that I was going to change the sound of their post. But you want enough content coming in, whether it's blogs or videos, that it can't all go through you every single time. You want to be looking at it all, but it wants to go up faster than you can handle it. So you don't want to be the horse. You don't want people to have to yield to how much you can handle in a day. So you want quality content, and that drives engagement. And I've heard it from numerous speakers that the more quality content you have, the more engagement you will get. And any quality content is good. So as you're searching for people to do something, and I've heard it asked, man, I feel overloaded, I cannot write anything. And I loved the comment, I think it was Peter who said, we just had a form that we were able to put down some stuff and then somebody else took it. So we did that also, sometimes just took what somebody said and made it into a blog or a post for them. But you want to give them the freedom that they can do it on their own, and also be looking for the content that you are already making. Your Sunday school lessons, your sermons, little sections of it, or Bible studies. Your pastors put a lot of work into those. You can take that into a format that then is content that you can put out there. And if you become the horse that everybody has to yield to, you're going to slow the traffic down. So you want to think of it as a playground. When I am teaching my kindergartners, I take them out to the playground, and we go out and we look at, what are the rules for the slide? How do I want you to use this equipment? What are the rules for the monkey bars or the sliding, the poles that you slide down? Where can I play with the ball? And then I let them play. I don't say everybody is going to be on the slides for 5 minutes. And then we're going to all move over to the monkey bars for 5 minutes. That's not fun. So you want to provide them with resources and boundaries and then let them go. Look for the people that are already doing what you're wanting to do. Look for the people that are writing. Look for the people that are on Instagram. Look for the people that are on Facebook, and ask them to just join you in sharing what's at your church. They're probably excited about what's going on at church. They may need some support in what does that look like. And so I also told all of my writers, don't feel like it has to be perfect. Get something, especially if they were unsure about what I was asking them to do, or if it's somebody who's doing one of those cameo appearances and a one-time writing, I would ask them, could you just write that story down and send it to me? I've got editors who will look at it. I promise we'll look at it, and I can come back to you if something's not clear. So I wanted to give them the freedom to express what they were feeling, what they were hearing, and then I wanted to keep it within our boundaries. And so we would edit it and look at it, and then we would put it out there. But don't feel like everything has to go directly through you, and because you want more content than you can handle. When we were at our top, we would have 7 to 10 blogs go out in a week, and our online interaction for views would equal our worship attendance every 1.5 days. So if our worship attendance was about 500, we would have about 500 views in 1.5 days online, because we were putting out a lot of content. And if somebody writes something, they're going to want to share it. If somebody makes a video, they're going to want to put it out on their Facebook page and share it. So here are just a few resources that I have for you. This top one, this writers page, I wrote for my writers. It's what I sent them when I asked them to write something. I would say, here's what I'm asking you to do. If I asked them to write for the taking worship home and to respond to worship, then I would say, here's what I'm looking for. I want you just to listen. I want you just to be engaged in worship. And then if something touches you, how are you taking this Sunday into your life? What does it look like? Why is it important that you're here on Sunday? What does it look like in your life? Has it affected the way that you talk with your coworkers? Has it affected the way that you deal with your family? And so I'm trying to engage them in taking their Sunday experience into their daily life and what that looks like, and then sharing it so that the rest of us can grow. Because our goal is always to move people one step closer to Jesus. And that was true. I also heard this from one of our speakers. You want to be connecting with people that are not just in your community. I want my community of believers that are walking alongside me at St. Luke to move one step closer to Jesus. But I want my neighbors who they may never step foot inside of my church. I want them to connect with Jesus too. And so using the analytics and seeing how people are getting there, I could see that I had people from China checking out our blogs. That's awesome. They're not going to step into my church, but I want to move them one step closer to Jesus. And so I would send this to my writers, and it clearly says, your writing, what you give us is going to be edited, and we will take it down if it's not appropriate. We will ask for edits, and we want to walk alongside you. The second one is the article the top 10, and it shows the how many different contributors we had. And then the last one is just again on our philosophy of discipleship online and what that looks like for online discipleship. So I'm going to try to exit and get back to the camera, and if there are any questions, or I can be done.
No, that was fantastic, Miriam. I think we're going to try to field questions right as we go to the next break. But right now, I think we're going to transition over and work on storytelling. But really appreciated the boundaries, but also letting people play. I think that's really important, to give them a little bit of freedom, but give them those constraints. Even in the YouTube chat, we were talking about having policies written out, so you can always point back to those and say, this is what we do. And if you don't follow those, yeah, go ahead.
Right. Well, that was sort of that blog online to my writers. So here's kind of your job description. Here's what I'm looking for, and here's what we're going to do for you. So that's kind of where those boundaries were laid out.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you. I hope everyone checks that resource out. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
We'll come back with some questions in just a little bit.